At a bank outside Los Angeles, a nighttime explosion that no one hears. Cunning criminals no one sees. It's the perfect burglary in which cash and bandits vanish without a trace. With little to go on, the FBI must use instinct and determination to solve a case that seems impossible to crack.
Bank robbery is a brazen yet simple crime. A mask, a gun, a note passed to a teller. But bank burglary is different. It takes skill to disable an alarm, to penetrate a locked vault. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. In 1972, the largest bank burglary in U.S. history went down without a hitch. $8 million gone. Now agents must track a gang of sophisticated criminals with enough money to disappear forever.
Laguna Niguel, California, March 27, 1972. It's Monday morning at the United California Bank. Employees prepare to open for business. When the bank manager tries to unlock the vault door, it won't open.
Somebody call the safe company.
A technician from the vault manufacturer arrives 20 minutes later to check the door's locking system. He works for hours. The combination is right, the tumblers are in place, but unexplainably, even the expert can't get it open.
It's not working.
Looking for another way in, the technician climbs into the rafters above the vault. He is stunned to find a hole cut in the roof. Below, a second gaping hole leading to the vault. Agents from the FBI Santa Ana resident agency immediately respond to the bank. The first investigator to survey the cluttered crime scene is Special Agent Jim Conway.
Upon arriving and getting up on the vault and looking down at this hole, we could see a pile of rubble, I would say 6 feet tall and expanding out.
Once inside the vault, the technician discovers a screwdriver jammed into the lock's gears. Agents suspect the thieves wanted to delay the discovery of the crime. The place is a disaster.
My first impression was there was going to be a lot of time and effort needed to work this out. It was something we couldn't just plow into because we had a crime scene. We were able to walk in, a few of us, and look around and see what the extent was as best we could determine. But we're walking over watches and rings and valuables and everything else because it was all piled into this big cement mess.
Special Agent Frank Calley begins sorting through the chaos.
Just everything was thrown all over the place. There, the locks of hair, all kinds of check statements, photographs, things that people would normally put in a safety deposit box. I remember seeing urns with ashes of deceased people in there.
The agents begin the arduous task of determining how the burglars entered the seemingly impenetrable vault. They notice dark soil and pieces of burlap mixed with the cement rubble. Outside, they find the bank's audible alarm disabled. They also find a ladder. Interpreting the clues, investigators piece together the burglars' intricate plan to breach the vault. They disabled the alarm by injecting it with liquid styrofoam. It hardened, freezing the clapper in place and rendering the alarm useless. Then the burglars climbed onto the roof. Investigators find tape on a rooftop outlet, suggesting the burglars used the bank's electricity. When agents cannot find fingerprints on the tape, they conclude the burglars wore gloves. Fully powered, the burglars sawed a 4-foot opening into the roof.
Good, good. All right, we're in.
Once inside the rafters, they clearly knew how to bypass the interior silent alarm system.
They took a couple of the wires and that would have normally transmitted the alarm signal, and they clipped them both and soldered them together.
It was delicate, highly skilled work.
Knew right away they were smart. They did the homework.
Even with the alarm disabled, 16 inches of steel-reinforced concrete stood between the burglars and the contents of the vault. The only way through, an intensely powerful blast. Agents believe the bandits drilled holes into the cement, then inserted dynamite and electric blasting caps. The blast had to be precisely directed to blow through the cement without injuring the burglars or attracting attention. Agents conclude that the burlap fragments in the soil in the vault indicate that the burglars came prepared.
They placed the burlap bags over the explosive, not only to muffle the sound, but also it would direct the charge into the vault itself and keep the charge going into the concrete where they wanted it rather than coming back out where they were.
The investigators discover burn marks on the steel rebar that reinforces the cement. They conclude that the burglars knew the blast could not crack steel and came prepared with an acetylene torch. Agents turn their attention to assessing the total loss. Bank officials report $50,000 is missing from cash drawers. But the thieves were not content with the cash. They took the time to break into 458 safe deposit boxes. Investigators find tool marks on the locks of the boxes and deduce the burglars used a pointed instrument and a lot of brute force to break them open one by one. They carefully sorted through every item, leaving behind what they didn't want. Amazingly, the bandits were so methodical that they got in and out without being seen or heard. In 1972, most banks were closed on weekends. Agents conclude that the suspects took full advantage of that fact.
Apparently they had been in there several times, in and out over the weekend. They probably went in on Friday night, and they probably didn't get out till late Sunday night.
Not only had the burglars pulled off such a lengthy, complex crime, they did it without leaving a single fingerprint. Although investigators do find a brown cotton glove and broken drill bits, neither is unique enough to be traceable. Agents and deputies collect the debris for further examination at the crime lab. But with no apparent evidence and no witnesses, agents are facing the tough challenge of identifying and locating a group of highly skilled criminals, including electronics and explosives experts. Investigators turn their attention to determining the total loss from the safe deposit boxes. It will be extremely difficult since banks do not keep records of their contents.
Ordinarily, if you had a bank burglary, you would be missing cash. You'd go out and say, yes, we got to find $350,000 worth of cash. At this point, we did not know what was gone. It's a very affluent area. And so the possibilities of a tremendous amount of money and material being lost was evident.
Investigators begin the arduous task of carefully sorting and cataloging every item left in the vault. Then, by interviewing every box holder, agents learn the details of missing jewelry, rare gold coins, and bearer bonds. By a process of elimination, they slowly create a list of the stolen goods. The bank's loss of $50,000 in cash pales by comparison, as the value of the missing items rises to over $8 million. The heist has now become the largest bank burglary in U.S. history. With no physical evidence to go on, investigators hope to develop leads by thinking like the bandits.
We felt that they would need oxygen to burn the rebar, and so we canvassed hospitals, oxygen supply places, and things like that.
Despite checking every oxygen supplier in the area, agents come up with nothing.
We also felt that a drill of some type had to be used, obviously a large one, so we canvassed places to find if anybody had sold or rented a large drill, as we felt it would have to be used.
Again, agents go to dozens of equipment shops, checking records during the time surrounding the break-in. But they find no suspicious purchases or rentals. Clearly, the criminals in this case have masterminded and pulled off a nearly perfect heist. With no witnesses, no direct clues, and certainly no suspects, it seems impossible to solve. But the FBI is determined to identify the burglars and find them wherever they are. In March 1972, a professional crew of burglars blasted their way into a bank vault in Laguna Niguel, California, near Los Angeles. Over a weekend, they emptied hundreds of safe deposit boxes, made off with more than $8 million in cash and valuables, then disappeared without a trace. Agents believe they are an experienced band of criminals. The case is difficult to crack for the small Santa Ana FBI office. Needing more resources, they seek the help of the larger Los Angeles FBI field office. Special Agent Paul Chamberlain supervises the investigation.
At the time, it was our conclusion that this was the largest bank burglary in the history of the United States. We went to just about everyone in the office. It was several hundred agents. And that's not a typical response, but it became apparent that the crime was a significant crime.
The Santa Ana agents quickly briefed the Los Angeles office on the details.
We'd not had a bank burglary like that in recorded history in the Los Angeles division. Burglaries that did occur with banks involved a small effort, and this was a systematic, big-time operation that lasted over 3 days.
Since the burglars seem to be highly skilled professionals, yet have not struck Los Angeles before, agents conclude that they're probably from out of town. An an agent sends a teletype to all other FBI offices, asking if anyone knows of similar bank burglaries. They get a hit from the Cleveland, Ohio field office, where agents have been investigating similar bank heists, 13 of them, in fact. The description of the California burglary immediately strikes a chord with them, including Special Agent Buddy Nix.
We knew from the modus operandi, the MO, the outside alarm had styrofoam spray placed in it to keep the audible alarm from activating, the fact that it was a roof job, the fact that the alarm system had been bypassed were all indications that bank burglary crews in Youngstown very well may have been involved.
The Ohio agents believe the 13 Ohio bank heists were committed by the Youngstown Erie Bank Burglary Group, a loose association of criminals tied to organized crime. The California agents were right. These are no small-time crooks.
Youngstown at that time was just a mecca for organized crime activities. I mean, they controlled the illegal gambling businesses, and they were, very much involved in interstate transportation of stolen property and tractor-trailer thefts, and there were burglary crews that were operating, and there were a lot of very sophisticated burglaries that were taking place at that time.
As part of earlier investigations, the Youngstown, Ohio agents have identified nearly 100 men believed to be part of the burglary group. They've collected intelligence on each of them. Agents send the men's names and mugshots to the Los Angeles FBI. There, investigators try to narrow the list. Since the criminals must have traveled to California, agents check airline passenger manifests from around the time of the burglary. Without the benefit of modern computers, it is a time-consuming process done by hand. After an exhaustive search, they find the names of 5 men from the Youngstown list who had boarded a recent flight to Los Angeles.
That's great.
Emil Dinzio, Harry Barber, Charles Mulligan, Charles Brockles, and Philip Christopher arrived in California 9 days before the heist. A 6th man, James Dinzio, came in on a different flight the day before the burglary. Finally, agents have developed suspects.
Dinzio and his brother, Emil Dinzio.
Agents review the intelligence gathered on the 6 members of the burglary group. All have long records for home and small business burglaries,
First suspect we're going to look
and
at
have done
today,
little jail time.
Emil. So if we get him,
Emil Dinzio appears to be the brains of the gang, the leader.
you need to pay attention to that picture and remember his face.
He plans the jobs and handpicks the team to pull them off.
This is Charles Brockles. This guy has a
Charles
history of
Brockles is an explosives and electronics expert,
since he was a kid.
well-versed in bank alarms.
Blown a hole in the roof. Here in the files.
Agents believe Philip Christopher is a lookout for the gang.
All right, he's known for his expertise in bank robbing.
The other gang members are all relatives of the leader and probably help with the grunt work.
Muscle of the group, Oliver James.
There's Emil's older brother, James,
His face only a mother could love.
and Charles Mulligan, Emil's brother-in-law.
Here, you're gonna really appreciate this guy. Yeah, I
There's
got it
also
right
Emil's
here.
nephew, Harry Barber.
Okay. Why don't you take a look at this guy?
The men are all seasoned professional criminals, well-connected in organized crime.
Mr. Harold Barber, he's a lowlife.
The Youngstown, Ohio FBI has linked them circumstantially to many bank burglaries, but never had direct evidence.
All right, and he's
The
a
charges
nobody.
never stuck.
He's a nobody, not a heavyweight, but we gotta...
The only information that links the suspects to the crime is that they were all in Los Angeles at the time of the burglary. Agents begin the difficult job of tracking their movements, starting at the airport.
We then canvassed and interviewed every cab driver at LAX that was working that day. That was a massive project.
If I showed you a couple pictures.
Agents spend days interviewing dozens of drivers. It finally pays off. One cab driver recalls taking a group of 5 men to a home in the nearby community of Southgate. He remembers the trip well.
The cab driver specifically remembered these folks for 2 reasons. One, because of the $100 tip, but for the other reason, they were tough, mean-looking guys.
Agents get the address from taxi records and decide to go there. But it is a risk. Agents fear that if the suspects find out they're investigating the burglary, they might skip town. They have to take the chance. It is their only lead, according to Special Agent Jim Conway.
But we had to interview somebody. We had to get our investigation started, and we were concerned that naturally that the rest of them would be aware that we were at least that close to identifying them.
Agents learn that the Southgate house belongs to the Barber family.
I don't have any idea.
Ronald Barber, the brother of suspect Harry Barber, agrees to an interview but is elusive.
Yeah.
We did not have a warrant or anything at that particular time. We had nothing positively to tie him to it. But the more he talked, the more he seemed to know, and the more we were impressed that he knows a whole lot.
Ronald Barber claims the 6 men were never at his house. Agents still have no direct evidence. Yet they believe Barber's story may be at least partially true. They note that the house seems too small to accommodate Ronald and 6 other men staying there. Agents conclude that at least some of them likely stayed elsewhere. So agents spread out, checking one hotel after another, starting with those closest to the bank. Special Agent Frank Calley.
We figured these fellows were high rollers. They knew they were going to get a big haul, so they were going to stay at a nice place. So we were knocking on the doors of every fine hotel in the LA, Orange County area.
It is more tedious, time-consuming footwork, but they do not give up.
Sir, I'm with the FBI.
On a hunch, one agent decides to take a different approach.
There was an agent who figured that maybe they didn't stay at the best hotels, and he took it upon himself to walk into a truck stop hotel. And lo and behold, he found out that Emil Denzio had stayed there.
You're sure?
You're positive.
Emil Denzio is the leader of the burglary group.
But they would have been together, all 5.
Records show his brother-in-law, Charles Mulligan, also rented a room there around the time of the heist. Agents check Mulligan's registration card and find a license plate number.
Denzio.
They trace it to the Southgate address of Ronald Barber. Investigators now have 7 suspects, the 6 from Ohio and the local Ronald Barber. They still have nothing directly linking the men to the crime. But the investigation is finally rolling forward, and the FBI is closing in. Weeks after a well-planned multi-million-dollar bank burglary in Southern California, the FBI identifies 7 suspects. Ringleader Emil Denzio and his brother James Denzio, Charles Mulligan, Philip Christopher, and Charles Brockles, and Harry Barber and his brother Ronald Barber. A notorious gang of professional thieves based in Youngstown, Ohio. Agents determine at least 2 of the men stayed at an area motel days before the heist.
Okay.
Special Agent Paul Chamberlain is convinced the men are responsible, but he has no evidence to prove it.
By reference and innuendo, you kind of knew who was involved, but you need to have the evidence in federal court.
Agents subpoena the motel phone records and find a series of calls to a local man named Earl Dawson.
Our background investigation concluded he was a former military, a Marine guy with some training in munitions, explosives. And inasmuch as we had major explosions that occurred at the bank, it became interesting to us.
Special Agent Frank Calley learns of another interesting connection.
Yeah, we're gonna be down on...
Dawson is from Youngstown, Ohio, the base of operations for the burglary group.
So the light goes off again, and we say, well, now we got another break. We got the connection somehow between the boys from Youngstown, the Denzios, and their cohorts in Dawson.
Look, I got these pictures out here. Now, I know if you
The agents decide to approach Dawson at his house to convince him he should cooperate.
over here haven't seen it.
They show him pictures of Emil Dincio and his associates and ask if he knows them.
I'm a country
Dawson is
student.
reluctant to talk.
I was in the Corps as well.
Knowing Dawson is a former Marine, Special Agent Calley appeals to his sense of duty.
Here to serve our country.
Earl was a very patriotic individual, and I'm a former Marine, and we just kind of played that. I said, come on, Earl, you know, you're a former Marine, you've served your country. I said, what's important, Earl? It's a big case. And he said, what is it? I said, heard about that bank burglary down in Laguna Niguel?
Pictures, I know you know something.
Calley's tactic works.
Know this guy.
Dawson comes clean.
This guy. His name's Mulligan.
He admits knowing 3 of the suspects: Emil Dincio, Emil's brother James, and Charles Mulligan.
Just lost track of my...
He and Mulligan are old friends who grew up together in Youngstown. Dawson tells Calley that the day before the Laguna Niguel heist, Mulligan came to his house with the other suspects. Mulligan gave him $100 to leave the house for a few hours so they could hold a meeting. Dawson left without hearing what they discussed.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
But Dawson adds that he does have something the agents might want to see.
He shows up the other day.
Mulligan left a car in his garage.
A few hours in a meeting.
It's still there. It is a huge break. Perhaps the car holds the evidence they've been looking for. But before they can check it out, they're interrupted.
While I'm talking to him, the phone rings. He answers the phone and he picks it up and he points to the phone and he mouths the word Mulligan.
Thinking quickly, Agent Calley asks Dawson's permission to eavesdrop, a legal requirement for using what he hears in court. Dawson signals that there is another phone in the bedroom.
Mulligan comes out and he says, hey, has anybody, the FBI been around? Dawson says, no, they're not around. I think I almost had to laugh myself at the time listening to this. He's playing a beautiful role out there. He's really flip-flop. He's on our side now.
Mulligan explains that he knows the FBI has been asking questions about him and his cohorts, and that they're getting worried. And he's heading back to the Los Angeles area.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Mulligan said, I want to come out tonight and to see us. I'm going to move the car in the garage.
Agent Calley seizes the opportunity to trap Mulligan. But he fears that he might be setting up Dawson
Yeah, that'd be great.
and the FBI.
Didn't know for sure this officer, he could be sitting across the street at the time watching us, for all we know, with our FBI car sitting out front.
Calley instructs Dawson to arrange a meeting with Mulligan in a public place.
First, I'm sure you,
Dawson tells Mulligan to meet him at his favorite bar, the Walnut Room. Mulligan agrees.
okay, bye.
Now agents have a chance to inspect the car Mulligan left in the garage. But it does not belong to Dawson, so he cannot give them permission to search it.
Okay. Keep running.
Through the window, they can see a pair of brown cotton gloves, exactly like the one found in the vault.
Hey, Con.
The back seat is covered in what appears to be cement dust, similar to the debris found at the crime scene. It is the probable cause agents need to obtain a search warrant for the car.
Street patrol or something like that over here.
They also obtain an arrest warrant for Charles Mulligan and set up surveillance at the Walnut Room. Plainclothes agents position themselves inside the bar, not far from Dawson.
We staked it out, so to speak. Four of us were inside waiting, and we had a couple of men outside waiting for him to arrive.
Dawson introduces Agent Calley to some regulars as a buddy from the Marine Corps. the agents have to look natural while staying sharp. Earl Dawson's safety is their primary concern.
We didn't know what was going to happen, so we had to protect Earl.
Agents devise a method for Callie and Dawson to communicate. Either one of them can signal the other by simply going to the restroom where they will meet. 3 hours later, Mulligan finally arrives. He appears to be alone and greets his old friend, who tries to get him to talk about the heist.
I didn't want to be too close. I was across the bar from him. Earl was talking to him and asking him something about, you were involved in that deal down in Laguna Niguel. And old Mulligan said, well, what do you think?
Unable to hear everything they're saying, Callie heads to the restroom. Dawson follows. In the men's room, Callie asks for an update. Dawson explains that Mulligan is anxious to leave and to pick up the car from Dawson's garage.
No problem. Okay.
Callie tells him to go, but instructs Dawson not to get into Mulligan's vehicle.
Whatever you do, don't get inside that car. Okay, don't get in the car.
What Callie doesn't tell him is that agents are in the parking lot, poised to capture Mulligan. Agents finally make the first arrest in the case. As they take Mulligan into custody, they pretend to arrest Dawson as well to mask his involvement with authorities. Mulligan is charged with bank burglary. He does not resist arrest. But when agents try to question him, he refuses to talk. They hope to find answers in the car he was trying to pick up. Agents return to Dawson's house and search the car in the garage.
We found this large motor used as a drill and some other tools that we felt were very much probably the ones that were used in the actual committing of the crime.
Agents recover stolen coins, along with drill bits, acetylene torches, hammers, and other items that could have been used for the Laguna Niguel heist.
Exactly.
And we felt very good about it. Felt we hit pay dirt, we hit a home run.
Evidence technicians ship everything to the FBI lab in Washington, D.C. for processing. As examiners take days to analyze the evidence, field agents follow up on more phone records from the motel. One number belongs to a real estate agency in Laguna Niguel, California. A manager shows agents a condo she rented to suspects Ronald and Harry Barber days before the burglary. The Barbers told her they planned to stay 3 months, but left after only 3 weeks.
No damage, no problems.
She was able to put the day that they got there and the day they left together for us.
Lisa was rented to Ronald Barber.
The men moved out suddenly on March 27th, the day the crime was discovered.
He rented it for 3 months.
The manager gives investigators permission to search the condo, which is within sight of the targeted bank. Agents begin processing the condo for evidence, but initially find nothing.
The entire inside had been wiped clean with some kind of a product.
It seems the suspects were as meticulous there as they had been during the burglary.
There was no evidence recovered at the bank of any value, and therefore, it was not surprising to see a place that had been wiped down. It appears as if they had done everything to ensure there was no evidence. They'd done just about everything right.
But in fact, they made one crucial mistake.
One of the evidence persons went to the dishwasher and opened the dishwasher and realized that it was loaded with dirty dishes and that someone had neglected to push the on button.
The dirty dishes are covered with multiple latent fingerprints. At the FBI lab, examiners recover the prints from the dishes and from the tools agents found in Mulligan's car and match them to 5 of the 7 suspects. Toolmark experts examine the damage on the safe deposit boxes and compare them to the striking point of a snout-nosed hammer from Mulligan's trunk. They report another match. The FBI's case is gaining momentum with good circumstantial evidence and one suspect in custody.
All right.
Now agents must find the other 6 and enough evidence to put them away for good. In Southern California, the FBI connects a team of 7 members of an organized crime ring based in Youngstown, Ohio, to a multi-million-dollar bank burglary when they recover tools used in the heist from the car of suspect Charles Mulligan. Mulligan's arrest puts the investigation into high gear, according to Special Agent Paul Chamberlain.
We did realize that with the arrest of Mulligan, eventually, and shortly thereafter, they were going to figure out that we had figured who this group was. And therefore, we heightened our investigation. We did everything as fast as we possibly could.
But since most of the evidence is circumstantial, the case hinges on the testimony of informant Earl Dawson, a man the FBI must protect.
Go ahead and leave with him, all right? Okay. But whatever you do, whatever happens.
Earl was probably the key witness because the case was kind of dry all along. It's physical evidence. Burglars are very dry. Earl was able to put all the principals together. They were charged with conspiracy and burglary, and they could put them all together at his house.
Dawson begins receiving threatening phone calls, pressuring him to keep quiet. The caller insists on a face-to-face meeting to discuss the matter. But the FBI learns the meeting may have a more sinister purpose.
We received informant information that a contract was put out on Earl Dawson's life, and we're going to come out and attempt to kill Dawson.
Agents instruct Dawson to arrange a meeting at his favorite bar, the Walnut Room. But don't tell him about the planned hit. Agents want to confront the men to send a message to the Youngstown crime ring that the FBI is on to them. Agents are confident that they can protect Dawson as long as he stays in a public place.
I told him, Earl, don't leave this bar. Whatever you do, don't go any place with this. You don't ever leave that room. You stay right in that bar.
As before, if either Dawson or Callie needs to communicate, they will meet in the restroom. The alleged hitmen arrive.
He started buying Earl some pretty heavy drinks. Earl was basically a beer drinker, but you could see they were trying to switch him up to stronger drinks.
When Dawson starts to look concerned, Callie heads to the restroom.
Come on, hurry up. Get him right out of here.
Dawson tells the agent he's scared. The hitmen want him to leave with them.
I said, Earl, you're not leaving this place with him. Leaving, you're not leaving.
Agent Callie tells Dawson to wait in the restroom.
Listen, stay right here, and I'll be right back to get you. All right, just stay right here. Okay, hurry up.
The agents finally approach the men. They say they know what they came to do.
It's time to get out.
Let's go.
To the hitmen, the message is clear. Stay away from Dawson.
They had no problem leaving. I went directly to LAX, where they were escorted by LA's finest to an aircraft, and they left Southern California.
To keep Earl Dawson safe for good, the FBI decides to put him in the witness protection program.
You're gone. You're not going to see.
Agents then go after the remaining burglary suspects. Investigators secure warrants to search their last known addresses. At one house, agents get their first direct link to the burglary. Inside a woman's purse, they find a new $20 bill. They compare it to the list of serial numbers of sequenced bills taken from the bank. it's a match. Special Agent Buddy Nix at the Youngstown FBI office receives information from an informant indicating that these gang members had been known to bury the cash they stole until they could launder it safely.
We identified about a 20 or 25 acre field that we had information that some of the loot was buried in. We dug in that field for days on end, and using picks and shovels and probes, and we finally rented a bulldozer.
The land is adjacent to property owned by James Dincio. After more than a week of digging,
Hey!
agents hit the jackpot. They unearthed several footlockers filled with millions of dollars in cash and bonds that they're able to trace back to the Laguna Niguel bank burglary. Agents then get yet another tip. A neighbor of gang leader Emil Dincio calls police.
A lot of money in there.
He reports finding a cooler buried in his yard. It is filled with nearly $100,000.
Right over there, Mr. Dincio.
Investigators match their serial numbers to those taken from the bank and recover Emil Dincio's prints from the cooler. With more direct evidence against the gang, agents begin making arrests. They first go to Ronald Barber's Southgate, California home. They are armed with search warrants. The only person they find is Ronald's mother. The brothers have disappeared.
No, I don't. I haven't seen him in a
All 6 remaining suspects are still at large. 3 months after a multi-million-dollar bank burglary, the FBI has solid evidence against 7 members of an organized crime ring. With only one suspect in custody, Charles Mulligan, they set out to arrest the others. Emil Dincio, James Dincio, Charles Brockles, Philip Christopher, Harry Barber, and Ronald Barber. Agents go to Emil Dincio's home near Youngstown, Ohio, and discover he's made no attempt to run.
Because of his attitude and his air of arrogance, Mr. Dincio actually believed he was above the law and was the kind of guy that could make things happen his way.
When agents arrest Dincio, he is carrying $537 in cash stolen from the Laguna Niguel bank.
Come on, we'll call it.
Other gang members are also surprisingly easy to find. Within days, authorities arrest Emil's brother, James Dincio, at an Ohio airport. His carry-on luggage is full of more money from the heist. Agents make their 4th arrest, nabbing Phil Christopher. In his apartment, they discover over $32,000 in stolen cash hidden in his closet. The 3 men arrogantly maintain their innocence and refuse to cooperate.
I got a deal right here.
2 months later, agents nab alarm expert Charles Brockles and get a break. They decide to confront him with what evidence they have and explain they can put him away for decades. They offer him a deal. In exchange for his full cooperation in outlining the burglary group and their crimes, prosecutors will drop all charges against Brockles and place him in the witness protection program. He agrees. Authorities have captured 5 of the 7 suspects. Everyone except the Barber brothers. Authorities extradite them to California and indict them on charges of conspiracy, burglary, and larceny of a federally insured bank. While in jail, Emil Dincio brags about the heist to another inmate and asks for his help in beating the charges.
Mr. Dincio confided in him a great many details that were not in his best interest to confide. He got this other inmate to help him buy an alibi for the time of the bank burglary.
But Dinzio has chosen the wrong accomplice.
The other inmate was someone who had had contact with law enforcement on many occasions in the past, and he realized that what he was being told would be of some importance to someone, and he came to us.
Hoping to receive a lenient sentence for his own burglary case, the inmate tells agents of Dinzio's confession and the plan to purchase an alibi.
And that was Vegas? It was Vegas? Well, that's where his alibi is.
The alibi was that Mr. Dinzio was going to be in a motel room, a hotel room in Las Vegas with a prostitute and with physical evidence that would show that he was there.
The FBI sets up a sting. Agents give the inmate a contact to offer Dinzio. The contact is actually an undercover agent who will provide Dinzio's alibi materials. Dinzio takes the bait. At the jail's visitation room, he meets the undercover agent who plays the role of a fixer, a criminal expert in solving problems.
Mr. Dinzio received what he asked for. He got a registration card, which he registered in on. He put his fingerprint on it. He got a listing of shows, and he got the name of a prostitute who he was with, and that became part of his subsequent defense.
In October 1972, the trials begin in Los Angeles. Emil Dinzio offers his false alibi, but the FBI's undercover fixer testifies about the sting. The jury convicts Dinzio and the other 4 defendants. They receive sentences ranging from 15 to 20 years. But it is not over. 2 suspects, Harry and Ronald Barber, are still on the run. Within months, the FBI receives a tip that the 2 brothers are living in an apartment in Rochester, New York. Agents respond, and Ronald Barber answers the door. They arrest him and return him to California, where a jury convicts and sentences him to 15 years. He refuses to say where his brother Harry is. For 8 years, Harry remains a fugitive. Then, in 1980, a woman in Brookville, Pennsylvania, contacts the FBI.
I knew him as Brent.
She tells agents that her friend has been living with a man who told her he committed a famous bank burglary in California,
The other day, only because.
What's her name?
and that his real name is Harry Barber.
It's Harry Barber. Worried and nervous.
The woman tells the FBI that in an attempt to lead a legitimate life, the fugitive is working maintenance at a local campground.
Here, you know?
Agents move in and arrest him.
Hey, Barber.
Hey, Barber. The FBI, hands in the air. Drop the wires.
Harry Barber is convicted and sentenced to 20 years. Agents can finally close the case on the largest bank burglary in United States history. Authorities believe Emil Dinzio and his gang committed more than a dozen bank burglaries, stealing over $30 million altogether. By putting them away, FBI agents from Ohio to California stopped one of the most sophisticated bank burglary rings of all time. In Virginia, a bank robbery explodes in violence.
Put your hands up! Put your hands up!
Spraying bullets from automatic weapons at anyone in their way, the robbers disappear. With no reliable witnesses, The police and the FBI have to decipher fragmented evidence to identify the shooters and then bring them to justice.
Despite what you see in the movies, most bank robbers come in quietly, pass a note, and slip away. They want cash, not bloodshed. But in Richmond, Virginia, a pair of gunmen entered a bank with their guns blazing. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The raw violence of the crime shocked even the most seasoned investigators, who vowed to catch them before they struck again.
Throughout the 1990s, Richmond, Virginia averaged about 10 bank robberies a year. Prior to 1997, not one of them was fatal. On the morning of January 30th, 1997, the employees of a small bank on the east end of the city began the day's business. "23-year-old Christine Edwards, one of the bank's tellers, arrived for work. Her colleague, 21-year-old Tracy Freeman, was already there. Allison Davis, a customer service representative, and Richard Hartman, the bank's security guard, also began their day. Stephen Reed, a regular customer, arrived shortly thereafter. He entered the bank as the tellers finished setting up and was greeted by Hartman.
Good morning. How may I help you, sir?
No one saw the two men slipping in the bank's rear door.
First National Bank, how may I help you? Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
When the men struck, they did so swiftly and without mercy. "80 yards away, Richmond police officers Michael Webb and Dave Martin were at a convenience store getting coffee for their morning shift.
Hey! Something's happening at the bank. Where? I heard gunshots in the bank.
The bank. About a block
The bank
down?
right up the street.
Excuse me, back up.
As the officers responded, Richmond Dispatch ordered backup units to the scene.
16 respond. 929, 116.
At the rear of the bank, the officers spotted a security guard lying in the parking lot.
The bank, man down. Looked like he'd been shot.
We're going to the front now.
Officer Martin guarded the front as Webb went to check on the guard. He was still alive. Barely. Webb called for an ambulance.
119 EMP now.
Then, two armed men emerged from the bank.
Stop! 119-10-5 to 119W. Shot.
Shots are being fired, units.
Webb emptied his clip. The officer knew he was pinned down and outgunned.
They stopped shooting. I stopped shooting. And I just knew these two guys were going to come each side of the vehicle after me. I changed magazines and sat there and waited for a couple of seconds.
But the gunman never came for him. Officer Martin left his position to back up Webb, but the assailants surprised him. With
With only a service weapon, Martin was outgunned, which allowed the robbers to get away from him. All the officer could do was report their position as they escaped across the cemetery.
Got a black male running with black jacket toward Divertown Road. 2 men.
The Richmond officer saw a cloud of red dye, the sign that the gunman had stolen a bundle of money containing a timed dye pack. The men leapt over the next wall, and the officer lost sight of them. The dispatcher forwarded the information to the Henrico County Police Department. Officer Martin searched the neighborhood, knowing 2 men with automatic weapons could be around any corner, but found no sign of the suspects.
.233 radio.
An Henrico patrolman arrived on the scene. EMTs arrived. They tended to the wounded guard outside. Richmond police entered the building.
Police, everybody down! Stay where you are!
Looking for any other gunman that might still be inside, and to check the condition of the other employees. They found 2 tellers, both shot.
It's okay. Come on out, man. Come on, everything's fine.
Allison Davis had taken cover.
Come on, come with me. You okay? Everything's okay.
She was not injured, but paralyzed with fear and taken to the hospital for evaluation. After clearing the bank, the officers felt it was safe to let the EMTs care for the wounded. For teller Christine Edwards, it was too late.
It's gone.
Forensics responding. A squad and forensics responding. Supervisors for crime scene control.
Okay. Tell me where it hurts.
Tracy Freeman, in severe shock and bleeding heavily, was stabilized and rushed to the hospital.
All right.
Along with Richard Hartman, the security guard. At the Richmond Police Homicide Division, Detective Tom Leonard was disturbed by the robbers' brutality.
This was our most violent bank robbery that we can remember in our history. So our fear was they were in the neighborhood and we needed to get them off the streets.
Leonard headed to the bank. Officers collected items dropped by the robbers when they fled, including a Lorson 380 semi-automatic handgun and the clip to a Tech 9, another semi-automatic weapon. A K-9 officer with a tracking dog began searching for the suspects. The dog followed a scent through the cemetery. On Art Avenue, the dog lost the trail. Henrico and Richmond police canvassed the neighborhood, asking the residents if they had seen any strange men fleeing the area.
Rita?
But no one saw anything suspicious. Detective Leonard arrived at the crime scene with an evidence technician.
We immediately shut down that bank, and the only people that were inside the bank was myself and forensic people. So as we went through the bank looking for forensics evidence that we could pick up and look at, we found a lot of spent shell casings, which were fired. We had some that were unfired.
Those shells were 9mm, likely used in the Tech 9. Behind the teller's counter, investigators found a backpack, apparently left by the robbers. Inside was a piece of green tablecloth, a bottle of charcoal lighter fluid, a box of matches, and a note reading, "Please wait 5 minutes."
We couldn't figure out what that was all about.
On the surface of the teller's counter, investigators spotted several boot prints. They preserved each print with tape, which they would later compare with footwear collected from potential suspects. Because the bank was federally insured, police called in FBI Special Agent Wayne Waddell from the Richmond field office.
Let's go ahead and see what we can get on this, Tom.
At the bank, he and Detective Leonard checked a videotape that had recorded several surveillance cameras simultaneously. But there was a problem.
Oh man, Tom, look at that. We got a problem.
Something caused the film, in our opinion, to not be working correctly. It went one camera to another camera to another camera, and you were getting different angles from the front door, the rear door, and from different teller positions.
They would need to make still photos from the individual frames to get any useful details. Special Agent Eduardo Alford joined the investigation. He knew the FBI would not stop until the gunmen were captured.
I'm sure if you talk to every person that was involved in this investigation, they would tell you the same thing. They wanted to stay on this case around the clock, which essentially is what happened.
Evidence collection at the bank lasted for hours.
Later on in the evening, at around 5:30 or 6, we received word that Henrico County had received a report of a break-in. I went over to the break-in site.
It was on Art Avenue, across from the cemetery, not far from where the K-9 unit had lost the trail of the suspects.
We didn't know if it had anything to do with the bank robbery or not. A young woman that lived there with her father found the front door had been knocked open and went in the house and discovered a lot of items that appeared knocked around or perhaps taken.
When Special Agent Waddell went inside, a Henrico officer pointed out a hole in the ceiling. It appeared someone had stepped through from above. They feared someone might be hiding in the attic. No one was there. They searched for evidence. Investigators found a pair of boots. They also found a backpack and a coat. Inside was another note reading, "Please wait 5 minutes." They also found another green tablecloth. Red dye, like that used in bank dye packs, covered many of the items.
So we absolutely felt that there was a connection between the house break-in and the bank robbery.
But they didn't know how the two crimes were related.
We had no idea why the bank robbers would come to that house. Was it an opportune moment? Did they know someone there? Was there something that drew them there? Was it happenstance? We had no idea. We interviewed the owner and his daughter and the daughter's boyfriend. And you interview these people because what are these bank robbers, what are these suspects doing in your house? And we're trying to find, is there a link or is there not a link?
The residents were equally confused. They reported that whoever broke into the house stole some men's clothing, suits and jackets. During questioning, the boyfriend acted nervous and claimed he had no information to add.
About what time did you get here?
At the hospital, a Richmond detective sought out the wounded victims who could provide eyewitness accounts.
Yes, ma'am.
But he was unable to see anyone. The two wounded survivors were still in surgery and could not be interviewed. Allison Davis, the customer representative who had escaped injury under her desk, was so distraught she had to be heavily sedated. Stephen Reed, the customer inside the bank, had been grazed by a bullet and had come to the emergency room on his own. But he was also of no help. He had Alzheimer's disease and could not remember any useful information.
By the end of that first day, we still had nothing more than what we had to begin with. So we knew it was going to be a ways to go. It was going to be a tough case.
In Richmond, Virginia, two armed bank robbers escaped with $10,000 cash, leaving two employees wounded, and 23-year-old teller Christine Edwards dead. The community was stunned, as was Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
This girl was an angel. And these guys, they just walked into the bank without a word spoken and shot her dead. It's sick.
Determined to find her killers, Richmond homicide detective Tom Leonard and FBI Special Agent Wayne Waddell had to pursue the case without the benefit of eyewitness accounts.
The problem with the employees and the customer that were in the bank is they were all traumatized. We actually could not talk to any of them for several days.
The detective tried to interview Allison Davis, the customer representative who had taken cover under her desk and escaped injury. But she was too traumatized by the ordeal.
Yes, I'm Detective.
Hospital staff had to sedate her, and she was unable to speak. There were no witnesses available to tell investigators what actually happened inside the bank. All they had to understand those events was a flawed videotape of the surveillance cameras, according to Detective Tom Leonard.
That really caused us a problem trying to piece things together because we were missing little bits and pieces of the video, so you didn't get to see the whole robbery occur like you normally would.
Working with still photos captured from the surveillance video and records of the physical evidence recovered from the bank, the investigators pieced the crime together moment by moment. It was a complex series of events, all taking place in a matter of seconds.
You could see where the bank had obviously opened, but the only people who were inside were the security guard, the bank representatives, and one customer. The customer was standing there at the walkway area where you go through your little lines talking to the security guard.
The lead gunman headed straight for the teller's counter.
The first guy bypassed the security guard without even looking at him, without even noticing him. In our minds, we realized the front guy was not worried about the security guard. He knew that the second guy was going to take him out.
In the photos, investigators saw the second robber pointing the Tech-9 at the guard. The first robber reached the counter and shot both tellers, killing one.
Rack that weapon, and he walks all the way down here.
Ballistics testing showed both were shot with the Lorsen 380 recovered outside the bank.
Here, going over the counter.
A bullet hole behind the customer representative's desk showed the gunman turned and fired at her, but the shot missed. Investigators noted the unfired 9mm rounds found on the floor. This suggested the Tech-9 had likely jammed, and the gunman ejected rounds trying to clear it.
I think when she was...
The photos revealed there was a brief standoff. While the second robber tried to clear his Tech-9, the first attempted to shoot the guard with a Lorsen. But that gun malfunctioned too. The Lorsen 380, recovered outside the bank, was found with a jammed cartridge. When the guns jammed, The customer, Stephen Reed, fled, followed by Richard Hartman, the guard. Unable to clear the Lorsen, the lead gunman pulled an AR-15 assault rifle and followed them. Spent shell casings and bullet strikes found outside supported witness statements as to what had happened next in the bank's drive-thru. One witness saw a gunman chasing the fleeing customer. He grazed his arm. The guard tried his best to stop the killer, but was struck by multiple rounds. The gunman returned inside. Hartman was still alive. The witness watched as he entered the rear of the bank.
He pulls open that back door, the wooden door, right?
Investigators realized Hartman had risked his life trying to draw the robbers out. The robbers loaded a backpack with money, including one bundle that contained a dye pack. The guard approached, fired, but missed. Another witness saw the guard flee the rear of the bank. The lead gunman pursued him into the parking lot and fired. The final shot to the temple permanently blinded Richard Hartman. Moments later, officers Webb and Martin found him there. Agent Waddell and Detective Leonard now had a clear account of the crime. Since the robbers came into the bank shooting, investigators believed their intent was to murder everyone, to eliminate all witnesses at the bank. The contents of the robbers' backpack revealed a plan to minimize witnesses on the outside.
The tablecloths and the note were, I think, to be put over the doors to ward off anyone coming up to the bank. Give us 5 minutes, we're still cleaning. Give us 5 minutes, we're not ready to open up yet. Something like that.
With the bank to themselves, the robbers could take their time. The piece of evidence that disturbed investigators the most was the lighter fluid. They believed the robbers were planning to use it to set the bank on fire as they left. Investigators knew they were dealing with especially violent criminals who acted with no remorse.
We needed to get them off the streets. Our fear was these people were going to get out into the community and commit some more murders because they'd already been bold enough to come into the bank and start shooting people. And we'd have to gunfight with these people to try to catch them later.
And the criminals were well armed. They still had an AR-15, the civilian version of the military's assault rifle, and a Tech-9, a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. The one weapon recovered, the murder weapon, was a Lorsen 380 semi-automatic. A records check revealed it had been stolen weeks earlier. Investigators released details of the guns to the press and asked for the public's help in tracking down the weapons. It worked, according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
We got lucky. We got very lucky. There was a person who was out there that overheard a woman that she worked with say that she thought that her husband sold those weapons. The FBI and the Richmond PD followed up on that lead and in fact did locate a gentleman who was a legitimate and licensed gun dealer.
At first, the dealer was reluctant to talk to authorities. He didn't want to incriminate himself by admitting that he might have sold weapons used in a murder. After agents assured him he could not be held liable since the guns were sold legally, he admitted he had sold a Tech-9 and an AR-15 a few days before the robbery.
Yeah, I got it all right here.
He located the ATF forms filled out by the purchaser. Investigators now had a name to move on.
The gun dealer told us that he had sold the weapons to Jermaine Sims. And we got hold of all of the units, all the guys working the case. Everybody was out trying to locate him. They finally ascertained that Sims was out of town.
While the search for Sims continued, investigators kept following their only other promising lead, the Art Avenue house that the robbers had broken into.
We started checking everything we could find out about the owner and his family. The girl that lived there had a boyfriend. We started checking him out. So we started from scratch with just basically an investigation on every person in the house.
The boyfriend, who had acted nervous during interviews, consented to a polygraph test. The polygraph examiner asked questions about the robbery and murder, while Special Agent Waddell observed. After an hour of questioning, the polygraph results were inconclusive.
Did you rob that bank?
The boyfriend could not be eliminated as a suspect. Special Agent Waddell knew he needed to re-examine the house and went back with a search warrant. This time, he returned with an FBI evidence response team. He was determined that a more thorough search would reveal a connection between the bank robbery and the break-in. The ERT technicians scoured the attic.
Got 2 guns here, 2.
Behind a wallboard, they found a Tech-9 semi-automatic pistol and an AR-15 assault rifle, precisely the type of guns used in the crime. They were still loaded, and their serial numbers were intact. Special Agent Waddell proceeded to check if these were the same guns purchased by Jermaine Sims.
We wanted to verify that they were in fact the weapons that had been bought from the gun dealer and used in the bank robbery. So we called back to the office. We read off the serial number, make, and model of these weapons, and they were compared to the ATF firearms form.
They were the same weapons. A ballistics expert compared slugs recovered from the bank to slugs fired from the recovered AR-15. They matched, connecting that weapon to the fatal bank robbery. It seemed certain that Jermaine Sims had indeed bought the weapons used in the robbery and murder. Now, the FBI and Richmond police needed to find him. In Richmond, federal agents determined 2 weapons used in a deadly bank robbery were purchased by a man named Jermaine Sims. Agents could not find Sims, but a background check revealed he was receiving government assistance. They followed up on that lead. At the Social Services office, an administrator confirmed that Sims regularly came in to pick up food stamps. She flagged his name on their computers and agreed to page the FBI the next time the suspect showed up.
First name.
Afternoon, ma'am. This is Special Agent Dorsey.
Agents went to the address listed on the ATF form and spoke to Sims' mother. She hadn't seen her son since she kicked him out the previous week. Days later, Richmond agents received a page from the Social Services Agency. Sims was there.
just a matter of pulling your check up.
The administrator stalled Sims until the agents arrived. They hoped he didn't suspect anything. When the agents arrived, the suspect seemed calm.
Excuse me, sir. Special Agents FBI. I need you to come with me.
They asked Sims to come in for questioning. Reluctantly, he agreed.
Good and clear. Go ahead and thank her for me.
They took him to a nearby police station where investigators tried to get him to talk about the guns. But interviewing the suspect was no easy task, according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
Sims was a difficult person to deal with. He was a person who was filled with hate and hostility. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to certainly cooperate with us. We were dragging bits and bits of information out of him, and he was really only providing us information that we already knew. We were having a lot of trouble bringing him to the table, so to speak.
Sims denied any involvement in the crime, stating he was at his girlfriend's apartment at the time of the robbery.
Who lives there with him?
Over several hours, Altamari kept pressuring him until finally Sims admitted he had bought the AR-15 and the Tech-9 with the intent to sell them later for a profit. He said he stashed the weapons at a friend's house, a man named Ra, but claimed he couldn't remember the address.
A street called Main Street.
Instead, he gave directions.
Now, who else is this guy Ra?
The interview continued while Special Agent Wayne Waddell tried to confirm Sims' story.
Sims told us where this house was located and described the house to us. We went to the locations. We could not find the house.
Determined, Altamari confronted Sims with his deception.
Do you think you're dealing with a bunch of amateurs here?
But Sims maintained his story that he still knew nothing about the bank robbery.
You've already told me that.
By then, authorities had located Sims' girlfriend, who supported his alibi. But investigators had strong evidence connecting him to the crime.
You're going to jail for the rest of your life.
He was informed that he was under arrest for bank robbery.
There's nothing like the silence of a jail cell to focus somebody on their problem. And he had a huge problem. He had his name on the title to these weapons that were used in this robbery. And we thought that if we gave him a little time to think for himself, that he would eventually come to the conclusion that it was in his best interest to cooperate with us.
After a week of incarceration and repeated interviews, Sims decided to talk.
Now, tell me about the guns.
He said after he bought the guns, he left them with two friends, Rashid Jones and LaFawn Bobbitt. He still denied having any involvement in the robbery, but investigators continued to work on him.
He admitted that of course he knew that they had robbed the bank. He still claimed that he was surprised that they had used his guns to do it, and expressed his outrage that they would have done this to him and gotten him out.
Sims said that after the robbery, Bobbitt and Jones came to his apartment wearing clothes he had never seen them in before. They told him about the botched robbery, the gunfight, and their escape. They explained that they had broken into the house on Art Avenue, choosing it at random. They stole some clothes and stashed their guns behind the wallboard in the attic. As they were leaving, Jones accidentally stepped through the ceiling. They then slipped out, avoiding the patrolling officers. They had the money with them, but it was stained red from the dye pack. Police records revealed that LaFawn Bobbitt had 11 prior convictions and was free on bond from charges related to grand theft auto. Rashid Jones had 7 prior convictions, including grand larceny, and was on parole. Investigators reduced the charge against Sims from bank robbery to conspiracy. Now, with the identity of the killers in hand, the real chase could begin. After a 1997 bank heist that left one teller dead, Richmond, Virginia authorities believed they had identified the gunmen as LaFawn Bobbitt and Rashid Jones. They had no idea where to look for Jones, but they did set up surveillance at Bobbitt's last known address.
Been in it for a while. Yeah.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Ken Melson was determined to apprehend these men as quickly as possible.
We had to get these 2 cold-blooded killers off the street as soon as we can, so we would eliminate the possibility that they could do the same thing again and someone else would get killed. And yet we had a lot of work to do collecting the physical evidence, getting it analyzed by the lab.
They needed more time to build the federal case, but could not afford to have 2 killers on the loose.
Prosecutor's office in Henrico County to charge Bobbitt with the burglary, the breaking and entering of the Art Avenue address. With respect to Jones, he was in violation of his parole, so we got a warrant for a parole violation.
Special Agent Wayne Waddell received the go-ahead to bring in the fugitives on those charges.
We had 2 agents watching LaFawn Bobbitt's house. The 2 agents were Paul Messing and Eddie Alford. And we finally get authorization to arrest LaFawn Bobbitt. I get hold of Messing and Alford. They tell me that Bobbitt has just left his house.
All right, thank you.
The agent told the surveillance team to follow Bobbitt, then headed off to back them up. The agents followed the suspect into town, where he boarded a bus. They kept in contact with Special Agent Waddell, updating him on their location.
302, 304.
Soon, Waddell caught up. They decided to arrest Bobbitt at the next bus stop.
Bus is right in front of me.
All right, 10-4, I'm getting ready to come around you right now.
Waddell pulled around front to get into position. The other agents pulled in behind. When the bus stopped, the agents were ready.
Come on, Bob, if you're under arrest for parole violation, put your hands up.
Within moments, suspect LaFawn Bobbitt was in custody. Investigators executed a search warrant on Bobbitt's home. In his bedroom, they discovered a manual for a .380 Lorson pistol, the same model used in the murder. They also found several spent .380 shells. For FBI Special Agent Eduardo Alford, this circumstantial evidence suggested it was Bobbitt who fired the fatal shot.
It was actually the weapon that one of the tellers was killed with. Finding that shell casing was very helpful as far as determining which one of the subjects or suspects might have had possession of this weapon on this particular day.
The FBI lab identified Bobbitt's fingerprints on items left at the bank by the robbers, the first evidence directly linking him to the crime. Technicians at the FBI's Question Documents Unit compared the boot impressions found at the bank with boots recovered from the Art Avenue house and from Bobbitt's home.
One of the latent footwear impressions was consistent with a boot that was left at the Art Avenue address. Another latent was found to be consistent with a boot found at Bobbitt's house at a later search. And so that circumstantially, again, not conclusively, but circumstantially placed Bobbitt and his apparel in that bank.
The boots found in the attic likely belonged to Bobbitt's alleged partner in the crime, Rashid Jones. Federal prosecutors now charged LaFawn Bobbitt with the bank robbery and murder, but investigators still needed to find Rashid Jones. 3 months after the crime, authorities received a tip from a store clerk. He reported a customer had attempted to pay with dye-stained bills. The clerk refused to accept them.
Mr. Jones had been in that particular area in the south end of Richmond trying to exchange some of this money. So the Fugitive Task Force pieced that information together, and they were really able to hone in on that particular area based on the proximity of this particular merchant store.
The FBI focused on that neighborhood, working all of their contacts. The effort paid off.
The information that came in was from just a reliable source of information. Somebody that was aware of this crime and knew Mr. Jones and was able to pinpoint a location of where he was hiding.
Jones was staying in a run-down apartment building frequented by transients. Agents were able to obtain the cooperation of a man living there. The arrest was planned for 5 a.m. when Jones would likely be asleep. They called the location and spoke to their contact inside. He said Jones was there, sleeping, and he had a gun. The contact also warned there were other people in the apartment, and most of the lights did not work. As the arrest team approached the building, they went through a final briefing, reviewing photos of their target. They anticipated a dangerous confrontation. Jones was armed, desperate, and surrounded by innocent bystanders. In 1997, the Richmond Fugitive Task Force SWAT unit closed in on Rashid Jones, suspected of bank robbery and murder. They'd received a tip that Jones was hiding out in an apartment. From their contact inside, they learned Jones was armed and most of the lights did not work. There were several innocent people in the apartment. The building was dark and foreign, complicating an already difficult challenge in which SWAT had to take down an armed fugitive while protecting innocent bystanders. The team decided to sneak up on Jones silently. They hoped he had not been tipped off. When they reached the target apartment, an agent phoned their contact inside.
FBI, we're here.
The contact was escorted out of the building. When they made it to the room where Jones was said to be sleeping, he was gone. So was his gun. tension mounted as SWAT began searching the rest of the apartment.
Get your hands up, man. Get your hands up. Come on, get up. Get up.
They found and removed 2 other residents. Every room was cleared, except one, a bathroom.
Jones, you know you're in there. Come out. Put your hands up, Jones. That's him. Let's go.
To the team's relief, Jones was unarmed and surrendered without a fight. The manhunt was over.
Get on, sit up.
Agents searched for his weapon. They discovered it in a closet, its firing pin broken. Had the gun been functional, the arrest might not have gone so smoothly. Jones was immediately charged with probation violation and later for the bank robbery. On February 25, 1998, the trial of Rashid Jones and LaFawn Bobbitt began. But it would not be an easy case. Assistant U.S. Attorney Ken Melson and his prosecution team were unable to use any of the people in the bank as witnesses.
None of them could really testify for us because the guard was blind as a result of being wounded. One teller was dead. Another one had never had the opportunity to even turn around to see anything. And a third employee was unable to testify because she didn't see anything. She was under a desk during most of the robbery.
Melson found a way to deal with the lack of witnesses by commissioning a digital recreation of the crime.
We had to stand in for them digitally and show the jury what happened inside that bank. We were the witnesses' voice to the jury during the trial so that they could be involved and experience the agony of the victims, experience the moment of the bank robbery. And that would give them not only the true feeling of what went on in the bank, but the true carnage and intent of the defendants.
After hearing 6 days of testimony, the jury convicted both gunmen on all charges. Assistant U.S. Attorney Nicholas Altamari.
In the trial, they sat there smug as all get out. And it wasn't until after they were convicted that you could really see them start to worry, because then it was about them. Then they were worried.
Bobbitt and Jones were each sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Jermaine Sims, who purchased 2 of the weapons used in the robbery, was convicted on conspiracy, accessory before the fact of murder, and several weapons violations. He, too, was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. As the victims and their families continue to heal, they and the city of Richmond know that Jones, Bobbitt, and Sims will never be a threat to anyone again. On the glittering streets of Las Vegas, ruthless gunmen overpower defenseless victims and haul away a motherlode of cash. Following a trail from exotic dance clubs to the tranquil suburbs, authorities finally put down the reckless robbers. But a daring jailbreak leads the FBI to a violent showdown with a man so desperate he'll risk his own family to get what he wants.
In Las Vegas, a gang of robbers targeted an ATM repository and hit the jackpot. They take over $1 million in cash, the largest heist in Las Vegas history. I'm Jim Kallstrom, former head of the FBI's New York office. The robbery was well planned and precisely executed. The FBI and local police struggled to identify and track a desperate criminal whose tendency for violence turned a robbery into a case of murder.
Las Vegas, a gambler's paradise, where even criminals sometimes try their luck. On the night of December 21st, 1998, a Las Vegas couple and their 18-year-old sister-in-law prepare to go to work. The family owns a janitorial service that cleans commercial buildings. Suddenly, two masked gunmen rush up and force them inside their own van. For the cleaning crew, an ordinary workday has just become a night of terror. The gunmen blindfold and tie up their three captives.
Boy, shut her up! What are you looking at? Sit still. Sit still. Don't move.
They can hear the gunman talking to a female accomplice on a radio.
Let's go. Car 2, are you in position?
The gunmen seem to know the janitor's routine. They drive around until 11 p.m., the time they are scheduled to begin work at the Bank of America building. The gunmen even park where the janitors routinely park their van.
Let's go. Your feet down. Let's go, girl. Get out of here. Next.
The building is Bank of America's central ATM repository in Las Vegas.
Let's go.
Cash from 1,200 automated teller machines, often totaling more than $1 million, is delivered there each night. The gunmen force the janitors to use their key card and access code to unlock the door. This bypasses the bank's alarm system.
Get in there. Let's take it. Get over there. Come on. Sit right there. Sit down. Go. Turn around.
The gunmen release the couple and order them to clean the building as they normally would.
Turn around. Go.
They keep the wife's sister hostage to ensure the couple complies with their orders.
She is dead. You hear me? She's dead. Act like you're clean. Get out! Now! Get out.
At 11:30 p.m., an armored car arrives to pick up the night's cash deposit. Following a standard security protocol, the two guards first call the bank security company to ask if there have been any unauthorized entries.
We're checking out the parking lot, the only thing.
The alarm company reports that the only people inside are the janitors. The only vehicle the guards see in the parking lot is the janitor's van. Inside, everything seems completely normal. The janitors are too terrified to say anything. The life of an 18-year-old girl is at stake. The guards open the vault containing $1,088,000. Shrink-wrapped and ready for pickup. Suddenly,
Get down! Get down! Get on the floor! Get your hands up!
as the gunmen disarm the guards,
Grandpa, stay down.
one of them accidentally discharges his weapon. The bullet ricochets off the floor and hits one guard in the chest.
Come on, let's go.
Hang on.
One of the guards calls for an ambulance.
12. My partner's down. He's been shot. I need an ambulance quick, please. Please.
FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf arrives at the scene. He heads the investigation.
Everybody was very scared. And, it took a little while to calm everybody down and to get a story as to what exactly happened. And the descriptions that we got, because the subjects were masked, were very general in nature. We were looking for 2 males who were either white, black, or Hispanic, 6 foot, 6'3", and about 200 pounds. That was basically all the description that we had.
With little to go on, every detail is important.
The janitors told us that when the subjects first entered the bank, they were a little taken aback at the number of video cameras that were in the bank. That indicated to us that they had not been inside before.
This suggests that the robbery may not have been an inside job. Agents interview a truck driver who witnessed the robbers leaving the depository.
Turned over to here, I saw 2 guys just...
The truck driver was making a late-night delivery to a nearby store.
He saw 2 men run out of the depository and throw some bags in the back of a white Chevy S10 pickup truck.
And they just took off in that direction.
Authorities begin searching for the getaway truck.
I put out the announcement for all responding units to look for a white Chevy S10 pickup truck. It wasn't very long after that the vehicle was found about a quarter of a mile from the depository, just parked on a residential street.
Investigators run the truck's plates. Ironically, the truck is a police maintenance vehicle that was stolen from a Las Vegas Metro Police lot 1 week earlier. Investigators begin questioning neighbors, including a woman whose home is closest to where the truck is parked.
She hadn't seen anybody get out of the pickup truck, but earlier in the evening, there had been another truck parked in the same place. And she described that as a white GMC dually, which is a pickup truck with 4 wheels on the back axle.
Agents believe the woman saw the robbers switch vehicles, a common MO for bank robbers. They issue an APB for the white GMC truck. Hours later, they receive the welcome news that the wounded guard has undergone surgery and will survive. The next day, the bank determines that a total of $1,088,000 has been stolen. To date, it is the largest bank robbery in Las Vegas history. Although FBI agents believe this was not an inside job, they cover all their bases by interviewing the armored car guards and all bank employees.
We didn't have a lot to go on. We ended up interviewing everybody who worked at the branch and everybody who worked at the armored car company and polygraphing some of them.
Although agents do not find any new information, they do rule out the employees as suspects.
Thank you.
The subjects who committed the robbery could have found out everything they needed to find out by following the armored truck around and following the guards around. And we surmised early on that that's probably exactly what they did.
With the investigation running out of leads, executives from Bank of America and the Armored Car Company decide to offer a reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the robbers. Agent Schlumpf advises them on how large the reward should be.
And I said $50,000, which was quite a lot for a bank robbery, but we were going to need to generate some public interest in this case.
Agents ask local authorities for their cooperation.
We notified the airport that we were looking for someone carrying large amounts of money. We notified all the jails to advise us if anyone tried to bail someone out with large amounts of cash.
A week after the $1 million robbery, the FBI receives a call from security at Las Vegas's McCarran Airport.
They had gotten a telephone response from someone asking if large amounts of currency would set off the metal detectors. And they took the number down on caller ID and gave it to us.
Investigators use a reverse telephone directory to find the caller's address. Agents set up surveillance on that address, a home in the suburbs of Las Vegas.
There were people going in and out of the house about every half hour. Someone would arrive and someone else would leave. But it's curious, and I'd kind of like to know what's going on.
After several hours, agents decide to interview the people in the house.
Hello, how are you? I'm Investigator Davis from the Las Vegas Police Department. This is Special Agent Reed.
It was just a piano teacher who was giving half-hour lessons, and she was going to be going to Utah with about $3,000, and so she had called McCarran Airport to find out if that would set off the detectors.
The lead is a dead end. Agents are back where they started. But later that day, a woman responding to the reward poster calls the Las Vegas Metro Police. She claims to have key information about the bank robbery.
So tell me about this stripper friend of yours.
Her name's Jennifer.
The tipster tells agents about a dancer she knows who works at a local strip club.
Oh, Fuzzy Bottom. Over on Tampa.
Her name is Jennifer Arden. She says Jennifer has been spending a lot of cash lately.
He was able to give us a telephone number. We traced that number to a rented trailer.
The FBI sets up surveillance on the trailer. Agents watch for any clue to the identity of the two gunmen or the location of the stolen $1 million. In a matter of minutes, a white GMC truck pulls into the driveway. It's the same make and model the robbers used as their getaway vehicle. Agents run the license plates. According to the Department of Motor Vehicles, the truck is registered in Las Vegas to Timothy Blackburn. The driver enters the house and leaves minutes later. The surveillance team immediately notifies Agent Schlumpf.
The sighting of the GMC pickup gave us enough probable cause to get a warrant for the trailer.
Moments later, a SWAT team surrounds the trailer.
To serve the warrant, we brought a lot of people with us because we knew we were looking for armed and dangerous subjects. They had already shot one person. We knocked on the door of the trailer and nobody answered, so we kicked the door open and served the search warrant.
The SWAT team finds one man in the trailer. He identifies himself as Riley Bates. He reveals that Jennifer is his girlfriend. One team of agents begins searching the trailer for evidence, while another heads to the strip club to question Jennifer.
FBI, I'd like to ask you a few questions, please.
About what?
You've been spending an awful lot of money.
The exotic dancer told us that the money was her money that she had made over the past 4 years dancing, and that she didn't know anything about a robbery or anything else.
Back at the trailer, agents continue to search for clues. In the bedroom, they find a heavy-duty combination safe. It looks brand new.
The trailer was filled with trash, and it was not the kind of place where you would expect anybody with any money to be living. And yet here they had this brand new safe they had bought.
What's the combination?
Riley claims the safe belongs to his girlfriend, and only she knows how to open it.
Find out.
Agent Durham, may I help you? Jennifer, what's the number to the combination of the safe?
The agent asks Jennifer for the combination.
It's not my safe, it's my boyfriend. It's
But
not
she
my
says
safe.
Riley
How would I
has
know
it.
the combination?
Did you hear that? She said she doesn't know what the combination to the safe is. The safe belongs to her boyfriend.
So we go back to
He says
Riley
it's
Bates
herself.
and tell him that his girlfriend said he had the combination, so then he told us the combination.
Yep, that's it.
Inside the safe, the FBI finds $50,000 in cash and bags of marijuana.
Selling pot.
Riley insists that he made the money by selling marijuana and claims he knows nothing about the robbery. Agents strongly suspect he is lying. But with over $1 million missing, where is the rest of the money? Las Vegas, December 1998. A team of violent bank robbers shoot an armored car guard and flee with more than $1 million. A tip leads the FBI to a rented trailer and a brand new safe containing $50,000.
Bunch of cash in here.
Jennifer Arden, an exotic dancer, claims she earned the money dancing. Her boyfriend, Riley Bates, says he made the money selling marijuana. Now agents must find the rest of the money. Over $1 million in cash. The FBI calls in one of their top interviewers, Special Agent Brett Shields, to try to get the truth from Riley.
Where's that money from? You're getting a lot of trouble here.
We tried to remove him from his comfort zone and took him out to my car where he's a little bit more on edge rather than at the comfort of his own home.
Yeah. You're gonna get in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, Riley Bates was a shifty little guy. He knew he was in a tough position because we'd found the money in the trailer.
He tried to maintain that it was profits from the marijuana that was found in the safe. It wasn't believable that he was that successful and he's still living in a single wide trailer.
You're gonna be in a lot of trouble here, you know that?
I don't know what you're talking about.
We had gotten convinced that we can help him out on the marijuana charges and he doesn't want to get tied up into the $1 million bank robbery.
He said, I didn't commit any robbery. So now Agent Shields and I know, we're probably about 2 questions away from finding out who did. So we said, okay, Riley, you didn't commit the robbery, but I believe you know who did commit the robbery. And he said, my brother Robert and his friend Tim.
It's my brother and his friend Tim. Really? Yeah. Well, where is Tim right now?
I don't know where they are right now.
Riley claims that he doesn't know where his brother Robert is.
Where are they?
But I don't know where they are.
But inside the trailer, agents find gaming chips and receipts from the Luxor, a casino on the Las Vegas Strip.
So we sent a couple agents to the Luxor, and they contacted management, and sure enough, Robert Bates was staying there.
The hotel's head of security tells agents that Robert Bates has been spending heavily, paying for everything in
That's
cash.
located where, sir?
That's in the southeast town. You can see the types of items that they're purchasing.
Judging from his guest portfolio at the Luxor, Robert Bates had been just partying constantly since the night of the robbery.
The 2 agents stake out Bates's hotel room until he returns.
He was on some kind of drugs. There's no point in trying to interview someone if they're stoned on whatever he was on.
Bring your hand back, Mike.
Inside Bates's hotel room, agents find drugs, a gun, and $5,000 in cash. With nearly $1 million still missing, agents now concentrate on the second suspect named by Riley Bates, his brother's friend, Tim Blackburn.
We set up surveillance on Timothy Blackburn's house. So we had police and FBI agents surrounding the house.
They decide to approach Blackburn, but proceed cautiously. He's been investigated for armed robbery in the past and is considered highly dangerous.
Tim Blackburn was about 26 years old, 6'3", 230 pounds. He was a martial arts expert, and he liked fighting, and he liked guns. He was an accomplished marksman.
FBI's criminal apprehension team moves into position. Special Agent Castle Nishimoto is a member of this elite tactical unit.
My job was to watch the streets. I knew he was armed, but I wasn't particularly scared at that point because I felt confident that I would be able to spot him and from where I was watching.
The agents were just approaching the house to make contact with the people inside when a car comes driving down the road.
The SUV suddenly accelerates towards the agents. The driver loses control.
And the vehicle stops and a man jumps out and runs away. We assumed it was Blackburn who had run out of the car.
He was jumping the fence, the walls in the back of the house and so forth, and trying to get away. And so from that point on, we began to search the area.
The driver of the vehicle is Blackburn's sister-in-law. Authorities take her into custody. The FBI and Las Vegas police launch a house-to-house search for Blackburn. Two blocks away, a canine unit picks up the fugitive's scent.
Got me. Come on out! Got me. Well, your hands. Don't make me sit the dog. Come on.
Blackburn was found by a canine unit hiding under a deck in someone's backyard. He had a mask and he had an ankle holster.
Fortunately for the canine officer, the holster was empty.
There's nothing in it, man.
Blackburn had lost his gun jumping over fences.
Man, it's behind you. Back.
Sorry, we got him. We'll take him inside for questioning.
I don't have him. We're gonna find him.
Investigators search the suspect's home while agents question Tim Blackburn and his wife Sophia.
Because I know that you know what's going on. I know that you know where the money is. Can you tell us where the money is now, where it's been put?
They offer Blackburn a reduced sentence if he will admit to the robbery.
I don't have any money. If you don't see it, it's not here.
He refuses. Investigators continue to search the house.
An evidence response search is very methodical. It's not just everybody running around to where they think something might be hidden. Everything is photographed first, and then the search progresses room by room, and then the outside is usually done at the end. They find some flex cuffs, like were the same type that the janitors had been bound with, and they found some walkie-talkies and some other surveillance equipment.
I got something here.
Early that morning, in Blackburn's backyard, they find several duffel bags inside the doghouse.
I just couldn't believe that he put the money in the doghouse. And then on second thought, I thought, well, maybe that might not be a bad place to put the money, since nobody looks there. It's just an innocuous place.
Investigators recover more than $900,000, 90% of the stolen money.
It took about 10 hours to count it. So by 4 o'clock that afternoon, we knew we had the money from the Bank of America robbery.
The U.S. District Court charges Tim Blackburn and Robert Bates with bank robbery, kidnapping, carjacking, and using a firearm in the commission of a violent crime. They are held at the North Las Vegas Detention Center. But the FBI's work is unfinished. They believe that Blackburn and Bates were not working alone.
We knew that there was probably someone else involved in the robbery, that it was too much logistically for only two people to do.
Agents suspect Sophia Blackburn might be involved because her story does not seem credible.
I was at the house several times to talk to Sophia Blackburn. Sophia claimed to have no knowledge of the robbery, and in fact, she provided an alibi for Tim Blackburn on the night of the robbery. She said she was with him the whole night. She couldn't account for the money that they found or the other items that were in the house. She was worried because her husband was in jail and she had 2 young daughters to raise herself. So she was claimed to be cooperative, but she would have these stories that were in no way even close to plausible. But that's what she was going to stick with. And, there was not going to be really any way to talk her out of them. There was no way that she was ever going to give us any information that would implicate Tim Blackburn.
On August 11th, 1999, 7 months after the $1 million robbery, Sophia visits her husband in jail.
You can't tell him where I am.
She secretly uses a tiny tool on her keychain to loosen the screws securing the divider window.
It's good, so my babies are doing all right.
Babies are great.
As the visiting room guard leaves to escort a prisoner, Blackburn removes the bulletproof glass.
Tim Blackburn climbed through the window and dived into the sally port. The one door closed and the second door opened before anybody realized what he had done. As soon as the second door opened, he was just climbing over everybody in the sally port and he ran outside.
Sophia retrieves a gun she had hidden earlier and tosses it to Blackburn.
All the alarms are going off and guards outside knew that there was a jailbreak.
As the Blackburns try to get away, they face startled guards in a violent shootout. August 11th, 1999. Timothy Blackburn, accused of the biggest bank robbery in Las Vegas history, breaks out of jail with the help of his wife, Sophia. FBI Special Agent Henry Schlumpf.
They tried to arrest Blackburn, but he shoots at them. This pickup truck that's sitting in the lot was going to be his escape vehicle. But the guards are returning fire.
Blackburn is forced to abandon the truck. Suddenly, his wife Sophia roars up in an Isuzu rodeo. In a matter of seconds, they are out of range.
It was hard to believe that Blackburn had actually escaped from the jail because although a lot of people want to escape from the jail and many attempted, very few actually get away. But it just pointed out again how unpredictable Blackburn was.
Looking for leads, FBI agents Henry Schlumpf and Brett Shields tracked down the suspect's relatives.
Blackburn was going to have to go someplace to get some help.
Agents check out an apartment building where Blackburn's sister-in-law lives. Parked out front, they find the same Isuzu rodeo used in the jailbreak. They run the plates and discover it belongs to Blackburn's wife, Sophia.
We see the truck in the parking lot. So now our heart's racing just a little bit more. Adrenaline's pumping. Since he was in federal custody, it falls under the U.S. Marshal's jurisdiction as well. So I called some Marshal friends of mine. We're sitting on this truck, not knowing if he's going to come back out to this truck, and we're going to have a confrontation right there before the Marshals get there.
After a few tense moments, U.S. Marshals arrive to help FBI agents raid the apartment.
Step outside. Can we go inside? Search your premises?
But Blackburn isn't there.
Or may have been used in the commission of a crime. You have a
Agents ask the fugitive's sister-in-law where Tim Blackburn is. She says she doesn't know.
This could be extremely
They ask why
serious.
Sophia's Isuzu is there and not her own car, which authorities know is a Nissan Pathfinder.
It's going to be as bad for you as him.
She claims it's in the shop, but her story does not check out. Agents suspect Blackburn is on the run with her Pathfinder.
Can you tell us where it is?
No, I have no idea where it's at.
For the next week, the FBI searches for Blackburn, his wife, and their 2 little girls. They come up empty. Then, 9 days after the jailbreak, A Las Vegas police helicopter spots a Nissan Pathfinder parked in the desert. A family of 4 is nearby. The FBI and Las Vegas police arrive in force.
Now we have no shot.
Special Agent Castle Nishimoto leads the FBI SWAT team.
We were located on a ridgeline quite a bit above them, and there was a valley between us.
We can see some people about half a mile away, too far away to identify them.
If law enforcement tries to move any closer, they will have to move through an unprotected open space.
We had to keep our distance from these people, because if it was Blackburn, he is a marksman.
Nevertheless, Agent Schlumpf daringly volunteers to drive down for a closer look.
It did take some courage, because the only coverage he had would have been the snipers. And they had at least 300 or 400 yards shot, as I recall.
As Agent Schlumpf gets nearer, he can finally make out faces.
I could recognize that it wasn't Blackburn. It wasn't anybody who we were looking for.
Authorities have hit another dead end. But Agent Schlumpf also realizes that authorities cannot continue to respond on such a massive scale.
There must have been 100 vehicles in this valley. All the SWAT vehicles and evidence response team vehicles and police cruisers. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, we can't be doing this every time someone says Tim Blackburn. I mean, nobody's got the resources, and we're going to burn ourselves out.
The next night, law enforcement pursues the dangerous fugitive with every available resource.
We had about 40 agents, police, marshals, Henderson Police Department, detention center people. We got everybody together, and we divided up into teams. And what we were going to do was interview every one of Blackburn's associates, search every house, find every vehicle that he could possibly have access to.
U.S. Marshals tell the FBI they have spotted the fugitive.
We arrive right as they're taking down what they believe is Tim Blackburn.
I could tell right away it wasn't Tim Blackburn, it was his brother. His brother is a younger, slightly smaller version of Tim Blackburn, very similar in appearance. As we're IDing him, what we notice is that his driver's license was brand new. He had just gotten it the day before. So we asked him, well, what happened to your old license?
On the hood.
Blackburn's brother claims he lost his license. But agents suspect he gave it to the fugitive to use as a fake ID. In the car, agents find a note from Tim Blackburn. In it, he asks his brother to get him some money. A man who once had $1 million in his possession now needs a loan to survive.
We decided to arrest him for aiding and abetting a fugitive. So that's what we did. We arrested Tim Blackburn's brother.
Authorities also arrest Blackburn's sister-in-law for lying to federal authorities when she said her Nissan Pathfinder was in the shop. With 2 of his family members in custody, agents develop an ingenious plan to lure Tim Blackburn into the open. In Las Vegas, a violent bank robber breaks out of jail with the help of his wife. After 3 days of eluding authorities, agents decide to turn up the heat on the dangerous fugitive.
One of the people we wanted to talk to that night was a close friend of Blackburn's who worked as a bouncer at a local gentleman's club. Most people who knew Blackburn either liked him or were afraid of him. And neither opinion was really conducive to providing information to us. His friend was really no exception. He didn't want to tell us anything, but eventually What he told us was that Tim Blackburn had called him at the time he was escaping. Blackburn had called up and said, I'm out, I'm out. And this friend could hear the sirens and stuff in the background.
You're the last guy that we know of.
So I told this friend, you are the last person who Tim Blackburn talked to that we know about. And I think he's going to call you again. And when he does, we want you to tell him that we've arrested his brother and that the people who have assisted him are going to have to pay for what they did to help him. This putting pressure on Blackburn was an effort to try to get him to realize he couldn't really escape, to get him to turn himself in wherever he was at. The next morning, this friend called me up and told me that, sure enough, Tim Blackburn had called him again and that he had told him that I'd arrested his brother and his sister-in-law. And, I asked him what did Blackburn say, and he just said he was mad.
2.5 weeks after the jailbreak, FBI agent Henry Schlumpf learns that Blackburn may have returned to Las Vegas.
I got a phone call from a Las Vegas SWAT officer. He had just met someone who gave him some information regarding Blackburn's whereabouts in Las Vegas, which to my mind was doubtful. I doubted Blackburn was in Las Vegas. But I asked the officer to ask this fella if he knew the names of Blackburn's daughters. And sure enough, this informant did know the names, so at least we knew he did know Blackburn.
The informant claims Blackburn is staying at a motel that caters to long-term guests. Agent Schlumpf and 2 Las Vegas SWAT officers rush to the location.
You seen these two before?
The manager says he's never seen the Blackburns before and they are not registered at the motel.
Okay, that's your register. I'm right there. You have a key?
Still, Agent Schlumpf decides to rent a room so he can surveil the facility.
Okay. All right.
SWAT officers call in the license plates of every vehicle in the parking lot. None of them are reported as either stolen or owned by any of Blackburn's relatives. The motel tip is beginning to look like another false lead. The FBI does not give up. They begin checking every apartment.
So what we decided to do was to perform a ruse. We would have a complex security guard just start knocking on doors and notifying the residents of noise complaints. I'm there watching, and the door opens, and Sophia Blackburn comes out to talk to the guard. I couldn't believe it. There she was. She looked happy and smiling and well-rested, better than I'd ever seen her. She did not look like she'd been on the run for 17 days.
Suspecting that Blackburn is hiding in the apartment, Agent Schlumpf calls for immediate backup. The criminal apprehension team and Las Vegas SWAT arrive within minutes.
SWAT responded right away. More agents came, and a lot of patrol units, marshals came. And what we did was we started evacuating the complex. Every apartment was evacuated except, of course, for the one where we thought Blackburn might be. And then we did what we do in 99% of our fugitive cases. Our criminal apprehension team placed a call into the apartment.
I need to talk to Timothy Blackburn.
What they do is they tell the person in there, look, we know you're there, you're surrounded, there's no way that you can get out, so come on out.
We just want to find a nice, peaceful way to end this whole thing.
So I'm waiting for Blackburn to come out, and I'm deciding, where are we going to take him? Back to the jail he escaped from or to a different facility? And that was my mindset. If he was in there, he was going to come out. But he doesn't.
Agent Slump, he wants to talk to you.
The apprehension team person was on the phone, and she says he wants to talk to you.
Hello, Tim.
And sure enough, it was Tim Blackburn. And my job was just to keep him talking on the phone, because as long as he's talking on the phone, he's not shooting anybody. When I first started talking with Blackburn, I was kind of commiserating with him, telling him, you know, it must have been hard being on the run for the last 3 weeks.
Hey, I took the kids to San Diego. Have you ever been
So
to San
here he
Diego?
was, maybe 10 minutes from Mexico, and he didn't go there. He came back to Las Vegas.
Agent Schlumpf cannot understand why Blackburn has returned, but is even more concerned that his children may be with him.
Why don't we just talk about...
Then his worst fears are realized. He hears the two little girls laughing in the background.
There's children inside the room. Repeat, there's children inside the room.
The SWAT team set up outside the apartment, and they were there to initiate a hostage rescue if Blackburn turned violent and started hurting any of the people in the apartment, Sophia and their two little girls. He says, Henry, I don't suppose you can just let us go. And I told him, I can't do that.
I'm not going back to jail, man. I'm not going back to jail. Look, I don't want my kids to visit me in jail.
Tim was set on not going back to jail. He said he just wasn't going to go back. And, after shooting a guard, there's no way any of that is going to go away.
Schlumpf worries that Blackburn may be suicidal.
Hey, Tim, it's time to come in, buddy.
Authorities now face a dangerous scenario. A hostage barricade situation involving an armed man, his wife, and two small children.
Look, I'm not going back, man. That's just it. I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going back.
The FBI and police SWAT teams surround a motel just off the Strip in Las Vegas. A violent bank robber has barricaded himself inside one of the apartments.
I'm not going back, man.
Tim Blackburn is armed and emotional. Inside the room with him are his wife, Sophia, and his two daughters.
Oh, you came back.
FBI agent Henry Schlumpf tries to talk the desperate man into surrendering.
Come on out.
Although negotiators are present, Blackburn refuses to talk with anyone but Agent Schlumpf, who months earlier had arrested him for bank robbery.
I'm not going back to jail, man. I don't want my kids to visit me in jail.
Agent Schlumpf pleads with both Blackburn and Sophia to let the children leave the apartment.
Slow it all down.
Sometimes I talked with Sophia and sometimes with Blackburn. It seemed like maybe we were getting a little farther ahead talking with Sophia, but then when we take a break and she talked to Blackburn, we kind of have to start over again. He had a lot of influence with her, because he's her husband. She was afraid that if she were to leave with the children, that Blackburn would kill himself. And, she certainly didn't want that to happen. We'd take breaks, and then I'd call in again. There were highs and lows. Sometimes it seemed like we were making progress. Other times, we took a couple of steps backward.
So, Henry, what's the best place to shoot myself in the head, huh?
He asked me what I thought would be the best place for him to shoot himself. And I told him that we had a lot of other things that we could talk about and try to work out before it came to that.
How are the kids doing?
Blackburn says he put his daughters in the bathtub to protect them.
For their own protection.
But the SWAT commander is concerned. Confining them could also be the prelude to a murder-suicide pact. The SWAT team prepares to blow the door in case they need to rescue Sophia and the children.
The SWAT team placed an explosive charge on the door, an entry charge, to be able to breach the door very quickly if they needed to.
after 4 long hours of negotiation.
They had to go clear to the back, into the bathroom, to try and rescue the children. And in this case, seconds, fractions of seconds count.
They got there just in time to see Blackburn falling down from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
They find Sophia dead. Both the children have been shot in the head and are barely alive.
I saw them running very quickly to try to save the children.
The SWAT team got them to the paramedics, but they died in their arms.
I felt quite saddened that my fellow SWAT officers tried their best and yet wasn't able to save the children. Our mission was to save lives, and we were not able to accomplish that.
It was just devastating. It was like the worst possible outcome.
The coroner later determines that the shots that killed Blackburn, Sophia, and their 2 little girls were all fired by Blackburn himself. A few months later, in federal court in Las Vegas, Riley Bates and his girlfriend plead guilty to possessing stolen money. Because of their cooperation, they are sentenced to only a year. Blackburn's sister-in-law is sentenced to 1 year for lying to federal agents and impeding their investigation. Robert Bates pleads guilty to bank robbery and is sentenced to 24 years in prison. Today, Agent Henry Schlumpf has made his own peace with the tragic events caused by Tim Blackburn.
He's ultimately responsible for everything that happened. He came back to Las Vegas to do exactly what he did. He came back to die. I don't think he was gonna ever come out of that apartment or let anybody else come out of it either.
Las Vegas law enforcement will never forget the deaths of 2 innocent children. For them, the Blackburn case is all about lost hope and the tragedy of a desperate agenda.